Well, hello. Um, I am so glad to be back, and I found my book. We were talking about the seven spiritual laws. This is the Kabbalion, and it's part of my spiritual toolkit. It wasn't in my toolkit, actually, where I keep my books, because I had it by the side of the hospital bed. And I didn't look there when I was looking for it. So I am very happy to have found it. This is the Kabbalion, and it is a study of Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece by the three initiates. Okay? And this is the book that I turn to when I am looking for some guidance on the spiritual laws. So that is why this book is very important to me. Actually, when I was doing my my study for my I got a little tear laying down. When I was doing the study for my ministry, for my minister, this was the book that we used for studying the principles and the laws that I have used to keep me kind of anchored and directed. It's the rudder for my spiritual journey and this cancer path that my body has chosen to take at the moment. So I'm going to talk about the law of gender, and it was really interesting. I'm kind of glad that I didn't just, and I think I'm going to continue this, I didn't just jump in and try to get all seven things done. I really like to do these conversations and have these dialogues when it's on my heart, what to say on my heart. So the spiritual law of gender, the last time I was talking about the spiritual law of polarity, and we talked about it being the axis point, and there's all these different gradations of any one emotion or feeling. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For every feeling, there's an equal and opposite feeling. For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite action or reaction. So that's the law of polarity. And I talked about coming into the balance portal or the balance point, and having to not necessarily negate one thing. We're not negating the ego, or the illusion we call the ego. We're not negating anger. We're not negating anything that we may judge to be negative. What we are doing, and it's real. I mean, in that moment for us, as we're feeling and experiencing things, it is a real sensation, a real event. And so what can we do to balance it out, to bring it to this point of divinity, this point of God, so that we can literally walk through the eye of the needle? You know, we'll use some biblical analogies. So we're not looking to swing one way or the other. Too happy, too sad, anything that's going to be peaks and valleys. We want to walk on a steady, secure ground, to stand our spiritual ground. And so we don't want to be toppled over, balanced on one foot or the other, right? So that is the law of polarity. And I think at the time, the Spirit has asked me to do that, think about it as being divine balance, okay? So the law of gender is divine harmony. And man, did I get a mindful this morning when I was in my practice. The law of gender simply states, just to keep it simple, that there is male and female in everything. And what Spirit gave me this morning, was what is male and female? Action and creativity. Think about things like that. Also think about it in terms of harmonizing, bringing together. So the yin yang, the Tai Chi symbol that we see with the black, the circle with the black swirl on one side is black, the female on one side is white, yin and yang, right? Yin and yang, Tai Chi, coming into harmony and balance. Harmony and balance. Harmony, harmonizing. And whenever I've drawn that symbol or I've used it in training, there's this line between the yin and yang, right? And so I've always thought about it as actually, to our naked eye, it looks like it's a solid line, and there's clear differentiation between the black and the white, the yin and the yang. Okay, in my spiritual eye, in my spiritual seeing, that line is not solid. It's active and vibrating. Everything vibrates, and there is interplay and between the male and female, black and white, yin and yang. And so when I have been thinking about the divine harmony, it is usually because what happens, and I actually am going to tell you a brief story in a minute about what happened yesterday. It's usually in my case that I'm wanting or needing through this journey called Cancer, more male energy. Sometimes I get so floaty, I'm praying and I'm meditating and I'm doing my energy healing, but there's a time which is the creation. It's the creation, the creativity. How am I coming into my healing? A lot of times, especially after I do 36 breaths or the I ams, the 108 I ams, I'll sit quietly and I'll be resting in that frequency. And there'll be a bubbling up, and I'll be inspired to eat, oranges today. So my body is craving oranges. So I'll go get some oranges, or I'll take a certain action. That's going to be the theme, I think, of this day, as I'm recording this, is to take action on the creative impulses and insights that we get. I don't know why my eye is watering a little bit today. But to take action on the creative impulses that we get. So we have to harmonize. To be in harmony means that we have to take action on the creative impulses that we get. And the creative impulses and the ability to take action is the harmonizing of the male and female energy within ourselves. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that there is male and female in everything that we do. We are male and female. So how are we bringing ourselves into our partnerships and relationships? In some areas, and there was a time in my life, I was a corporate executive, I had a very dominant male energy. Do, can do, at any cost, in any way, we get it done. Did not necessarily go into the female aspects, which would be how do we create this situation in a way that is loving, kind, and caring, even in business. And I, at one point, way early on, I had my personal achievement plan, a marketing plan for a company called You, and we talked about, as we are becoming entrepreneurial, how do we bring our spiritual principles into business? Right now, I'm talking about how do we bring our spiritual principles into healing and into this journey called Cancer, the spirituality of Cancer, right? So the harmonization of the action and the creation, the loving kindness and the caring into the doing, and how are we bringing those aspects into our doing as well as into our meditative and prayer practices and into our insights and inspiration. Okay, so it's very important to see the to use the understanding of what male aspects are and what female aspects are, and then harmonize them. You may be imbalanced in a certain way. Yesterday, it's really interesting. I found that I wasn't alone in this. I ended up being in a group of women having a dialogue about their experiences with cancer and the heartbreak of maybe a spouse not being able to stay, leaving because they just can't do this with you. And that's that's a whole other conversation for another day. But I didn't have a spouse, but I had a very dear friend, and actually he was my prayer person, and I have to say, because we had cultivated, and nurtured a very deep prayer practice, it is my misconception at this time, or that I can't get into that space without him. I can't do this without him. I can't do that. All these, the prayer principles and the prayer practice that I had established with him. And yesterday, and I get this sort of longing in my heart. And what ended up happening was I realized that what I was really yearning for was I needed to rebalance the male aspects, because over the last few weeks, I have been very deep into meditation, very deep into prayer, taking some action to move my life forward, but at the same time, sort of staying in this, I almost call it the cocoon, because when I go in at times, it's very deep and it's very nurturing, and I just don't want to move out of it. That's my safe spot. So I'm creating this safe space, but I'm not balancing it out with taking and walking in through spiritual strength and conviction. So it's almost like I'm retreating into the divine feminine, into the nurturing spaces, and the action spaces are not looking so safe. And that's real, so safe. Time to start living my life, time to start moving myself forward, time to start moving beyond the survival of cancer. Now I am truly living, with cancer, and then, the desire is to be living in wellness. Yeah, so there's that's an example of the gradations on using the principle of polarity, the law of polarity. And then, why am I in balance? Why am I not taking action to move myself into these things that are bubbling up? I am well bubbled up. I am balanced bubbled up. I am one bubbled up. So it's very important to sort of analyze, are you taking action? How am I taking action? From what space am I taking action? Am I taking action from a heart space? Am I taking action from a fear-based space? Am I taking action from a supposed to? Everybody around you is telling you, I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm supposed to be doing that. Where are you taking your action to and harmonizing it into oneness? Okay, so that was one message that came through very clearly this morning. The other message that came through very clearly this morning, which I thought was very interesting, and I'm sharing it with you. I haven't internalized it, but I'm just going to give it to you as I got it this morning, which was, we say, when any two gather in my name in Christianity. I'm not certain if that goes through other spiritual belief systems. But we say, when any two gather, and there's strength in that gathering. That's absolutely correct. They were not moving me away from that. But they also said the harmonization of the male and female are two aspects coming together as one. Now just think about the power in that. You harmonize your male and female, and you get that aspects and energy, and you bring those two aspects together spiritually and prayerfully and insightfully. And when you do that, it is the coming together, two aspects coming together as one to move yourself forward. So I spent some time in the space, in my morning practice. I thought, isn't that interesting? Because yesterday I really had this yearning to be prayerful with this person. And I knew that was not in harmony and not in balance in some way that I was seeking, I was yearning. And so to get that message this morning, it's like, when you've ever had something that it's almost like a lucky, lucky charm, or rabbit's foot or something. So you get to the point where you can pray into a space with somebody, pray into a moment with somebody. Know that when I pray with this person, things really happen. You have that within you. The vibration may not be the same and may not feel the same. But quite frankly, over the course of this last year, since this person has not been, present with me, it took me a long time. It was really the point of ego for me. How could this happen? We've been to God together. What is going on? I just can't even imagine that. I would have lost my prayer person, my harmonizer, my balancer, my male, my male energy. And, but that was, real. And I'm not saying that there is not some real creation energy that can happen between two partners, or two spiritual partners, two romantic partners, two life partners, whatever it is may be for you. However, it does not supersede the Spirit of God that's within you and the spark of God that you are. So last night when I began to do my work, because I was really in a space and I was really desiring prayer, and I finally settled down into my space, my heart space, my inner vision, my space of inner vision, and I finally settled down into that. And I asked for a balancing of my energy. And this morning I got these answers, okay? Which is the other thing. Sometimes when you go to sleep and you just say, God, please show me a way to balance or harmonize. Please show me a way to do this or that. Then the answers don't always, sometimes we sit there and we say, meditation is listening to God. Prayer is asking God or having a conversation with God. And meditation is listening to God. But sometimes, in my experience, I will talk in the I in this case, in my experience, I put something into God with the full expectation that the answer is coming. And usually the answer is there, 7 a.m., almost like clockwork, that the answer or the insight's there. So I'm actually sharing my insights with you from a prayer, or from a conversation I had with God last night. Okay, there is no one person in life that is going to complete you, that is going to give you something that you don't already have within yourself. Okay, including the lessons. I mean, if you really want a lesson or two, you don't have to be in front of somebody and go through all this karmic hocus pocus. You just don't have to. It's already, if you want to punish yourself, you have the full ability to punish yourself. If you want to love yourself, you have the full ability to love yourself. What is happening in the here and now is what is before you, and has nothing to do with, there is no time and space. So we're in this sort of dual system of, there's a clock, I got to be to work at 9 o'clock. My boss is not going to look at me kindly if I show up whenever and say, oh, there is no time and space. So in this construct that we call the world, in our third dimensional space, there is some alignments that have been man-made, but there are also alignments that are spiritual principle and spiritual law, and those truths never change. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the subtleties of our walk in life, not just through cancer in this case, but through life. And so the understanding of the law or the principle of gender, the truth is that you have that male and female energy within you. And how you choose to use it, direct it, manipulate it, massage it, and create magnificence is really up to you. And then anything else that happens in the world, a lover, a partner, a spiritual prayer guru, anybody who's with you at that point can balance you out. Now, there are males in existence, here that have feminine energy. So in the time that I was a very masculinized female, I had friendships, male friendships that were very nurturing. And when I look back, they were very nurturing and maybe very creative spaces. They were not men who were going to take over and do for me. Okay, they were men that were going to create nurturing environments and encouraging environments and supporting environments so that I was able to move forward and do what I do the way that I was doing it, and on a material plane, very successful at that time. Okay, so the harmonization of the law of gender is divine harmony, and the law of polarization is divine balance. And those two, when you come, you've heard harmony and balance. So now we've got the spiritual laws to actually activate harmony and balance in anything that you're facing in your life, especially this particular moment. So one final thing they're reminding me, I'm kind of pushing at my tongue a little bit. How does this truly relate to a cancer journey? Okay, very early on, I'm a Reiki master teacher, theta healer. Those are the paper certifications. Okay, and then I have this sort of divine gift. Not sort of. I have this divine gift. And so I would be sitting there and the bubbling ups would start to come. And I'm not going to talk about it today, but everything in the universe is basically mathematical. So if you have a situation, I literally asked, and when I was having the greatest decreases in the cancer numbers and getting physically stronger, the oxygen tank, the oxygen going away, those kinds of things, I had asked my spirit, show me the energy that balances out this cancer, brings it to neutral. And quite honestly, some of that, I still need to be in those questionings, And so then I would go into my I ams that I am, I'd have a bubbling up, and then I would get, I am well, I am restored, I am a sacred point of light. I have a system called the Soul Inspired Tune-Up that literally looks at maybe anger, loneliness, vulnerability, those kinds of things, and it balances, it gives an I am statement. But I wrote the Soul Inspired Tune-Up in 2010. And at that point, I believed, and I still do, it's still valid, good work, I didn't know about the balancing out point. I didn't know the spiritual laws. I didn't know that's what I was actually presenting. So when you're having a really tough day, I would suggest two things now. You've got the law of polarity. Ask your inner guidance, your inner self. Go into your 108 I ams or 36 or whatever you can do, but go into the I am, the space of the I am that you've now should have a relationship with, if you've been practicing. Go into that space, come into the rest, come into the quiet mind, and then you can either do it before you start your I ams or as you come into rest, and ask, what is the frequency that will balance out this situation? What is the frequency that will harmonize this situation? I command my body to come into harmony and balance. Okay? And that's how we use the principles of the laws, or the principle of polarity and gender together, so that we may go into that very sacred space called the balance point. So when we balance ourselves out, we harmonize ourselves out, we come into that sacred space of discernment. The final point for this video today is, how do we know it's truth? And again, I've had this before, but my guidance made a point this morning of bringing it forward. Are you at peace? It's just that simple. Are you at peace? Okay. When you come out of your meditation, out of your sitting, the I ams, the 108 I ams, when you're coming out of your sittings and seatings, when you're coming out of your meditation, when you're coming out of your spiritual inner dialogue with yourself and as you begin to harmonize the ego state of whatever your circumstance is with the state of your inner spark, your God spark, the state of your inner God being. When those things, when any two gather in my name, when any two harmonize, when 1 + 1 = 3, that third energy is the energy of healing, peace, divinity. All right? Namaste. I'll see you soon. Love you.